This is the Security Education, Training, and Awareness video presented by the 2023 Spring Cybersecurity Interns. Human error. 88% of all data breaches are caused by an employee mistake. This number went up by 6 percentage points since last year. Why? Humans are imperfect, they are carefree, they can get lazy, and most attacks are actually targeted towards these facts. We can get stuck on these facts when looking at data breaches. However, every data breach case that I have studied was caused by some form of human error, but it was really because there was not the proper procedures in place to prevent the occurrence, and in turn, the human employee had to be relied upon to not fail. So, the solution is not to blame the employee because it never should have come to that in the first place. The company needs to update its policies and procedures, and those documents should always be changing. Social engineering. Most forms of cyber attacks end up happening through a form of social engineering. Phishing, using fake emails to gain info. Baiting, luring someone with a false premise to gain info. Tailgating, gaining physical access to a building by going into restricted access areas through employees. Scareware, bombarding victims with false alarms to dupe victims into installing malware. Dumpster diving, searching to see if sensitive information was not disposed of properly. Quid pro quo, trying to bribe victims into giving out sensitive information. Most of these can be easily avoided by using cyber hygiene, which will be explained in the next slide. Multi-factor authentication, not trusting suspicious emails or figures, and always double-checking with others if you suspect something is wrong.
Cyber hygiene refers to best practices for keeping digital devices and data secure. Some best practices for good cyber hygiene are enabling two factor authentication whenever possible to add an extra layer of security to accounts, being cautious when on a public Wi Fi, locking your device when not in use, using encryption to protect sensitive data and information in transit and at rest, and also staying up to date on the latest cybersecurity threats and best practices. Why is all this important? Why is cyber hygiene important? Cyber hygiene is important to prevent security breaches and keep sensitive information safe. Data privacy refers to the protection of personal information and data from unauthorized access, use, or disclosure. Data privacy is important because it helps prevent identity theft, fraud, and other forms of cybercrime. Personal information that should be protected are names, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, and financial information. Data breaches, in particular, and hacking incidents have affected millions of individuals and organizations in recent years. Some best practices for protecting data privacy are limiting personal information and being cautious of emails or messages that ask for your personal information.
Distributed denial of service, otherwise known as DDoS. So, what is it? It's when a malicious attacker utilizes multiple systems to flood the bandwidth or resources of a targeted system. This system could be anything like the website we use or important programs that we need to keep running. This attack is usually sent out to more than one unique IP address or machines, and usually from many hosts of infected malware, meaning the people whose systems are sending this attack may not even be aware that their systems are part of this DDoS attack. So, what risk does this pose to us at TLT? When it comes to TLT, a DDoS attack only really poses a low or medium at most risk. TLT doesn't have any critical or vital programs that need to be maintained besides our main website. It's a low risk, low impact situation since there is no benefit for an attacker to DDoS, and not much would happen if the attack does occur. But say it did happen, how do we combat it? Well, we want to first create and establish a DDoS resiliency plan, starting with having people actively monitor incoming traffic so that they can recognize these DDoS activity. The faster we can realize it's happening, the faster we can act. Secondly, we need to increase the bandwidth of our systems. If we can increase the bandwidth, then we can increase how much of the attack we can handle. Lastly, we would want to reroute any traffic spikes through firewalls to ensure to essentially filter any DDoS attacks. And if we don't have these firewalls already, just make sure to add them to our system afterwards.
Worms. A worm is a type of malware that can copy itself. This is what makes it such a dangerous threat. Worms do not need to be activated by a user to spread itself. They also have the ability to steal sensitive information, change security settings, send information to malicious hackers, and stop users from accessing their own files. Now, a worm can intrude your system through many different ways, such as software vulnerability, a malicious email, an IM attachment, or a removable device. This type of threat can become extremely dangerous quickly. Spoofing. This type of external threat happens when a person or program falsifies their identity. It is dangerous because it can lead to financial fraud, identity theft, or even open a user to different threats such as phishing or blackmail. A user may fall for a spoofing attack through fake job offers, fake money refund messages, fake banking messages, fake lottery messages, or fake password reset messages. Destruction of documents. This should be done after a document retention policy dictates that keeping a document is no longer necessary. To complete the action, there are several possible methods. Shredding, specifically crosscut. This is most widely used. Other options are available though, such as burning, wet pulping, chemical decomposition, or pulverizing. Proper destruction of outdated or no longer used documents is necessary to maintain confidentiality and security.
So let's talk about internet security and why it's important. So what is internet security? It refers to the practice of protecting computer systems from unauthorized damage. And why is it important? So within a nonprofit organization, there's sensitive information such as personal data, and internet security has become increasingly important in order to protect that data. Some of the threats to internet security are malware, phishing, identity theft, and social engineering, which we introduced earlier in this video. So how can we practice internet security? The first way is to always keep the software up to date. Within every updated software, there's fixed mistakes that decrease the chance of cyber criminals successfully accessing the data. Second is to use a two-factor authentication. This is something that we're all familiar with. It simply provides an additional layer of security by asking for a confirmation of your account. Third is to use the virtual private network, which is also known as a VPN. This simply encrypts internet connection and makes it harder for hackers to have access to the data. And last but not least is to back up important data. This ensures that no data is lost in the event of a data breach or system failure.
Incident drills. What is an incident drill? It can be a planned event during which an organization simulates cyber attacks, information security incidents, and other types of disruption. Kinds of incident drills. Tabletop exercises, phishing email, spear phishing email, denial of service, adding an unauthorized device, external scanning, internal scanning, and physical intrusion. Cyber drills broken down. Tabletop exercises. Participants walk through a hypothetical security incident on paper, explaining how they would act. Phishing email. A mock phishing email can have an attachment or link that alerts testing team when it's opened. Spear phishing email. Targeted phishing, and it can use inside and public information to make its test messages convincing. Denial of service. Can keep users from accessing the systems or make responses unbearably slow, resulting in loss of business. Adding an unauthorized device. Inside attacks that may come from an unauthorized, malicious computer added to the network. External scanning. Unauthorized scans that come from external sources. An appropriate response may be to log the attempt and to block it, depending on severity. Internal scanning. Unauthorized scans that come from internal sources. This activity behind the firewall can grab information more easily than an external scan can. Physical intrusion. Trying to find an unattended, unlocked computer and deposit malware on it using a USB device or a download.
Risks of downloading online software. Downloading content off the internet can be an enjoyable way of experiencing music, video games, and other entertainments, and can be also a convenient way of obtaining information in Word documents, PDFs, photos, and other files. And nowadays, Updates are usually done through the internet. And what are the risks? Allowing viruses on your computer, installing adware, installing spyware, and having the firewall breached. And safe downloading practices are keeping your firewall updated, being cautious when downloading exe files. These are files used to run programs on your computer, but exe files are commonly used in viruses. Use trusted websites when downloading files. Be aware that people can change the name of their files to anything, trying to pose as a trusted download, and only downloading music from paid websites like iTunes and other trusted music websites. Risks of downloading online software. Downloading content off the internet can be an enjoyable way of experiencing music, video games, and other entertainments, and can be also a convenient way of obtaining information in Word documents, PDFs, photos, and other files. And nowadays, updates are usually done through the internet. And what are the risks? Allowing viruses on your computer, installing adware, installing spyware, and having the firewall breached. And safe downloading practices are keeping your firewall updated, being cautious when downloading exe files. These are files used to run programs on your computer, but exe files are commonly used in viruses. Use trusted websites when downloading files. Be aware that people can change the name of their files to anything, trying to pose as a trusted download, and only downloading music from paid websites like iTunes and other trusted music websites. Training delivery methods. There are 3 types of training programs that are put into different categories depending on the approach of the learning process. Synchronous learning is when a live instructor interacts with a group of learners in real time. The most common formats are on-the-job training or coaching, classroom training, workshops, and live webinars. Asynchronous learning. It is self-paced learning that allows a person to study at their own speed. Most common formats are e-learning, training videos, podcasts, email courses, and printed workbooks. And blended learning takes the 2 approaches and combines them together to get the benefits of both. The most common formats are a mix of both methods, and this format needs to be well planned and coordinated than just using one of the methods.
The TLT training course has now concluded. Thank you so much for watching.